Hi, I'm Brooke Castillo. My pre-presentation project is on conserving endangered species, more specifically, exploring the role of zoos and tiger conservation strategies. So, what is a zoo? A zoo is basically a facility where animals live in captivity and are displayed for public viewing. It's also short for zoological park, and it originated in 2500 BCE. It was known as a menagerie, and it was basically owned by wealthy people to showcase power. And around that time, those people would hire animal handlers who would ensure animals thrived and reproduced. So, the evolution of modern zoos. So, public zoos actually emerged around the 18th century, which was during the Age of Enlightenment. And the first modern zoo was called Menagerie du Jardin des Plantes, which was in Paris, like France, in 1793. And all the modern zoos focus on education, conservation, and recreating natural habitats. There's a bunch of different types of zoos, but basically a couple of them are urban zoos, which are small city-based facilities with like limited space. There's also safari parks, which are drive-through areas where animals roam, and I feel like we've all heard or been to the one at Disney. There's also game reserves, which are protected areas for free-roaming animals and are actually private. There's specialized zoos, which are like aquariums, and aviaries, which are focused on specific species. There's also petting zoos, which are the ones we're probably most familiar with, which are domesticated animals for interaction, goats, chickens, a lot. Okay, so my viewpoint on zoos are that they're obviously necessary under like certain circumstances. If an animal is injured, they need to be relocated to a zoo to recover, or if their habitat is undergoing like some sort of restoration of some sort, they obviously can't live there at that certain point in time. I don't agree with experimentation and how captivity can harm their natural instincts. They could lose the ability to be able to hunt for their food if humans provided it for them all the time that they were in captivity. And I believe the animals honestly should ideally live in their natural habitats. I feel like if they lived around humans, then they're going to get used to humans doing things, like I said before. Also, deforestation and urbanization also leave some species without homes, which I feel is so very wrong. And I just feel like the fact that zoos are there just offer a plan B. So if we want to build communities in some place, we just send all those animals to a zoo. And I just personally think that that's wrong. So the role of zoos in conservation, basically, one, captive breeding programs which prevent extinction and aim for reintroduction. A lot of people also say though that the reintroduction they obviously struggle with, and it also doesn't address habitat loss, like I said before. There's also habitat restoration, so it supports ecosystems, obviously engages communities, and it's long-term sustainability, but it's super costly. There's human-tiger conflict and obviously political barriers. Then there's rewilding debate, so efforts to reintroduce captive tigers often face poor survival rates, like I said before. Critics often argue that resources are better spent on protecting existing habitats. There's also economic and political pressures, so habitat fragmentation from infrastructure projects. There's also ecotourism and development tensions. Then lastly, poaching and wildlife trade. Persistent demand for tigers parts fuels illegal trade, which is another way also saying like poaching, which is when you illegally kill the tiger in this case. Most of the time it could be for their fur or some other part that people find amusing, or that they could be perceived as a threat and kill them. I think alternate strategies for conservation could be habitat protection, which is like a preserved ecosystem. I know an example of one is the Project Tiger in India, which is basically a conservation program that is aimed at safeguarding wild tigers by preserving their habitats and like ensuring their population thrives. Another one is like anti-poaching efforts, so to enforce stronger laws basically and patrols. There's also wildlife corridors, so connecting habitats for species movement. Then there's also community engagement, which involves locals to reduce human-animal conflict. So in conclusion, protecting natural habitats is essential for long-term survival for the species. Also, anti-poaching efforts and addressing habitat destruction, such as like deforestation and urbanizations, are super critical. Collaboration between zoos, governments, local communities, and global organizations is going to be necessary in the future. And combining resources and strategies obviously ensures species can thrive in the can thrive in the wild, not their natural environment. And this is just my works cited.